Welcome to Behavior Business Roundtable. We are in the throes of August. I'm tasting autumn weather. Maybe someday soon here is coming up, at least for those of us in the Midwest. Let's start with Kristen. How are you? You're back from no, I'm still stalking Steve. This is my intro.
I know. I needed to say you're ready for the pumpkin spice. That's what you're digging. That's what you're searching for right now.
It's not big on my palate. I don't know many people who are into it. I know it's a thing. Do you guys like pumpkin spice? That'll be my intro question.
If it tastes like pumpkin pie filling, then yes. If it just tastes like spices, then no.
I don't know
if
that I've ever
pumpkin
really
pie flavor, just eat pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Pumpkin pie blizzard, way better than just plain pumpkin pie.
Man. Kristen, you're back from ABA Cares. How was your experience?
I'm wearing my shirt today. I had my original sweatshirt on that were really nice swag. It has my name on the back. So Holly Beth knows how to throw a party. Also known as
you got named swag. Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, as a speaker, it was really nice. So I had the opportunity to talk there and sponsor as well because it's a really great conference. So if anyone's feeling FOMO right now, they should, and you should also sign up for next year.
What was your number one takeaway from Boston?
I think the ability. There's so many virtual conferences now, right? Like I swear, if you go on Behavior Live, there's like 800 available to go. And being in person with people is just so different. And there's actually a lot of people at that conference that I've worked with like for over a year and never met in like real life. And to actually see them in like 3D form was really wild. And so that piece for me was really nice. Awesome speakers too, but it's nice to be able to see real people in real life.
Right on. That's amazing. I'm experiencing the FOMO a little bit. Steve-O, how are you doing? You awake?
We're alive. The baby is letting us sleep some, so we're good. Anybody's wondering why we were gone for a couple weeks or a week there.
Cute kid. Are your fire alarms still going off, or have those been?
No, that was a one-time first thing in the morning, go and switch out all the smoke detectors because they're interconnected and didn't want to figure out which one was going bad on me. And we're back to not waking up in a panic every 20 or 30 minutes. So we're good.
One of life's cruel jokes with a newborn setting off all of your fire alarms with no emergency.
He was completely unbothered, as were the other children. But I was searching every room of the house all night long.
That's
crazy
awful.
how that works.
That's awful. Yeah. I'm sorry, man. And Taylor, hello. Good to see you, man.
Hello, good to see you.
What's going on with you?
Nothing, just excited that we're getting close to fall. It's my favorite time of the year. And be traveling to the Rocky Mountain states to run around and explore there. So looking forward to that.
Very cool. What are you doing
Fall's
there?
my favorite time of year.
Are you just hiking or backpacking or just looking around?
I have a couple hunting trips planned.
Nice. Okay. So you're like outdoorsy, I'm like outsidey. I think I like to be outside, but like, yeah.
No, I'm outdoorsy, sleep up on the mountain for a week straight. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm taking my kids backpacking next weekend, but it's like a 1 mile hike with like if things go south, which they inevitably will, we can just walk right back to the car. It's not going to be much, but that's awesome.
I'd have to carry my kids in a backpack for that to work.
Yeah, I don't expect much help on the carrying the load front, but maybe in the entertainment front, there'll be a good time. So, but yeah, school's starting next week, so it's kind of trying to make an annual thing of it. I can't believe school's already in full swing. Kristen, you guys are actually up and
they've
up
already
and running.
been back for a week. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
For a week.
That's wild. Well, you guys know the drill. If you're listening for the first time, we have some pre-made questions that our guests have looked at and written up their very 1 minute elevator pitch, concise responses to. We are talking supervision today. Different nuanced situations in supervision, different experiences or things that one may encounter while supervising clinically. I have for anyone who's listened before, we've always had a off mic buzzer. However, if you guys go over your minute, and I will be diligent this time around, you will get buzzed, and this is what it sounds like. It worked.
Nice.
And I'm not gonna be nice about it anymore.
We'll see. We'll
Steve.
see.
It's happening.
I think Steve just said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, I'm not convinced.
Hold the bottle. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that is, there's no rules. I write the rules as we go. So if you're saying something I really like, maybe I'll just I'll let it go. So
I feel like everything we do together is like, whose line is it anyways? Like the points or the rules are made up and the points don't matter.
But you always lose, Steve, but everyone else wins. So cool.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. No, I'm excited to dig in because I think the breadth of your experience as the three of you really, I think these are good questions for some good debate today. So let's get started. Steve, you're first on my screen, so I'll go with you first. In the vein of supervision, how can we supervise and teach professionalism when the problem isn't clinical skill? So when the problem is not something more or less on the task list, but more of a professionalism issue, how do we supervise that? Go.
I think a big issue is often when supervisors try to be too friendly or beat around the bush. Like, you don't want to be cruel about it, but you need to be straightforward and to the point. I remember in grad school, I was having some issues in my personal life, looking kind of disheveled, just not doing well. And professor's like, listen, I want to care, but I can't. You've got to help these people. You've got to get your stuff done. Nobody else in society is going to kind of let you skate by and not do what you need to do. So you got to have to find a way to pull it together. And it is one of those things that we'll support you along the way. We'll try to give you skills that might be missing to help you be supportive, but you still can't beat around the bush and then have someone not be professional in a professional setting.
Points. Kristen, you're next on my list. Go for it.
I think we have to remember like the age of folks like coming in to supervision, like especially if they are like maybe started like the BT route and like RVT. At the conference, Dr. Heather McGee even brought up like this may not be just like their first job in human services, like this may be like their first job. And so like really understanding the impact of like when you call out, when you show up late, like the impact of those things. And I think also just maybe some of their lived experience, like they're just not going to be previously exposed to things like food insecurity. So when you are wondering why you open up the kid's lunchbox and there's like one cheese stick for like an 8-hour session, like maybe that's because all mom had was cheese stick, to send. I think there is some learning that we need to, kind of embark on with those supervisees to really get them to understand like everyone is coming from a very different life journey than maybe what you yourself have experienced.
Right on. Taylor.
Yeah, I think when you sent out the list of questions, this was the hardest one for me to wrap into 60 seconds. So I think Steve left like 10 seconds on the table, so maybe I'll steal his 10 seconds. But
70.
You just did.
Yeah, I know, right? So I think back to the shared experiences that Steve, Kristen, and I had in grad school, where the idea of bidirectional feedback and that openness to be wanting to get the negative feedback or the areas of need of improvement. I think if we can teach that first, that makes everything else so much easier. That if that person's seeking out, how could I do better at these things? Or like Steve was saying, not beating around the bush and just being able to come out and say it plainly. And they're willing and open to take that feedback. I think that's the most critical skill, because I've worked with varying degrees of that throughout my career with people that I've been supervising. And when you bring up the issue with someone who doesn't even want to hear it, that is too proud or too whatever, it immediately turns supervision negative. And I've had people quit over it. Like, nope, I'm done. I'm leaving this company. I'm leaving this organization because you gave me that negative feedback, versus somebody who's more open to it. So I think if we can turn back and start at teaching that willingness and that openness to accept that bidirectional feedback, and also be willing to give it to your supervisor. So I'm over my time, but I think that's critically important.
Yeah, well, I gave you Steve's extra 10, so you're good. But yeah, no. And maybe if anybody else wants to elaborate on that, because how do you even get there? Like what variables are in place? Like a lot of people might say like, oh, just be well paired with your supervisee, but I imagine it's a little more nuanced or difficult than that. Kristen, go ahead.
I think some of that has to happen like at onset, even before you've had the chance to like pair or whatever. I remember the first day of practicum, we had a graduate student come in, and she's dressed very nicely, like, kind of like dress pants, like suit, but she had like like 3-inch heels on in our classroom. And I was like, whoop, nope. Like before she even like made it past like the desk, I'm like, you're gonna need to come chat with me real quick. I said, you look lovely. I said, but you need to wear sneakers or like some other kind of closed-toed flat shoes. I'm like, you're going to break yourself or you're going to break a kid, right? Like you're going to step on a kid's hand, one of those things. We're going to the emergency room. And I tried to say that as nicely, but like, I couldn't wait. I couldn't like let a week go by and be like, hey, now that we're buddies, I can tell you, like, no, like you are going to cause, severe injury to yourself or someone else, or a kid's going to elope from you and you're not going to be able to chase them because you're in those shoes. I mean, she took it really well. And I was like, like you can bring sneakers, change them here. If you want to wear that to class, like just keep it in, kind of the coat closet kind of thing. But it was an immediate thing that needed to be addressed. And I think she took it well because it was like the impact, not like, I just have a problem with high heels. Like, nope, if you wear those, here are the bad things that are going to like happen to you today, like guaranteed. And I think she like she either like ran home that day or like borrowed a friend. I don't know. We did something that she didn't impale any children with her stilettos, but you can always wait. Like you can't just wait for everything to be like happy. And like, she didn't know me from a hole in the wall. It was just like, nope, like you need to fix it immediately.
Yeah. I think establishing that supervisee relationship in a healthy manner, like don't just be I'm the boss, you do what I say, but here's what's going on, here's how it works, and then just have that. Like I've had supervisors that it was like you're just going to listen to me or else, and I wasn't going to listen to them probably anywhere near as much as someone who took the time to sit down, establish a relationship, and explain things to me in a way that I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That way, when you have to give the tough feedback, they know where it's coming from.
Yeah, Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, this is something I've been attempting to replicate my grad school experience to my work life experience now for the last 15 years. And I've had a tremendous time or tremendous difficulty being able to do it because I think those dynamics are different. And I'll maybe share a quick 30-second example of like Kristen was one of my first supervisors. When I was an undergrad, Kristen was my grad student supervisor. But we had a system that was set up that was inherently built into our program where the meetings that we had, and we had specific meetings where I was able to give Kristen the feedback that I needed, where I could say, Kristen, hey, I don't like the way you're doing that, or I do like the way you're doing that. And she was able to reciprocate the same way because we were both in it to try to help each other. I think being in an academic setting versus being in an employment setting is where some of that barrier creeps up. And that's the part I haven't been able to figure out how to overcome that. But I know my greatest experience was what I just described with me and Kristen, where Kristen was able to say, hey, Taylor, you got to do this. I think one of the other grad students was like, they just told me, Taylor, you got to smile more when you're giving feedback to those BTs. Like you're not smiling. And I can feel it, even though you're well-intended, you just got to smile more, man. And like, I took that so positively because I knew that person wanted me to do better in my life, in my career, in my profession. And so it was taken that way, but trying to replicate that in an employment situation where someone's just like not open to it and going like I said earlier, I'm just not going to work anymore. I'll work somewhere else where they're not going to give me that feedback. And so I think that's the hardest part, Kristen.
I think the academic piece is important. I was talking to someone at CARES today because she is going to do a university, practicum partnership, which I'm like, why are people not doing this more? Because it was, so at Western, for those of you who don't know, like you, as an undergrad, you had to do a practicum to graduate. If you were a psych major, you had to do a practicum experience to be able to graduate. You had to get a C or better, or you weren't going to graduate. And we were one of the biggest practicum sites, right? Like there was a lot of open spots because we had 3 shifts of folks, and there was a big classroom classroom. So we had a lot of practicum students, and they got graded. And so they had to come to seminar, once a week. They had homework, and then we were monitoring them. We're doing failure monitoring at least twice a week, and they're getting a score. And so it wasn't just like, oh, if I don't like this, I'll just leave. Because if they left, they were not going to graduate on time, right? So there definitely were some different contingencies there, but I think it was everyone was getting the same kind of treatment in terms of, I'm not picking on Taylor by monitoring him this week and not Steve. Like, I'm monitoring them both, right? Like the same amount of time. They're all getting the same content that they're getting, quizzes and homework on and things like that. So it's a little bit easier to, I think, set the bar like equivalent, like everyone needs to do these things and we're going to hold you accountable in this way. Granted, it was a little tricky that like every semester we kind of like had to restart that ride. But everyone, until they became, we had to start the intermediate and advanced practicum because there were so many students who wanted to continue and come back and do it, which I think is incredible and says a lot about that experience. They wanted to keep coming back. So we did have, significant turnover every semester because of it. But it still worked really well because everyone coming in, like, this is what we're doing here, folks. And I'm sure there was some that dropped in that first week who didn't, like, never mind, isn't that what I signed up for? But we had people who stuck with it because, those contingencies were there to stay till at least the end of the semester.
So I think to tie that back to my original response for this question was, if you can start that at the very beginning of your supervisor-supervisee experience, those are the ones I've had the most success with. And it's the ones where you lay it all on the table, you're trying to replicate those things and say, like, I want you to give me feedback as much as I want to give you feedback. I'm in this for you, like Steve was saying, like, we're trying to make each other better. But again, I think sometimes there is just not a good fit, or it's not a good career path or whatever.
Go ahead, Steve.
Just say, I think that there are times in general that you're still going to have someone who just doesn't want the feedback, doesn't want to listen, regardless of how much you work on that relationship. And we think about it, again, in terms of behavioral principles, like, hey, I'm tired. I've had a rough week. Okay, I'm sick this day, or my grandma died for the 4th time, that sort of thing. And we like being able to give those feedback things like, listen, I'm very sorry that you're going through this, but if you need to take a leave of absence, let us know, or you need some accommodations, let us know. Otherwise, you still have to do your job. And it has to come down to that a lot of the time. And so all this is great. We're saying, sunshine and rainbows, have this back and forth, have this relationship. But there are times where sometimes you just have to be straight to the point. Listen, this has to get done. I care, but I can't care so much that you get to escape the demand because of what's going on.
Yeah, Kristen.
With that, I think that values alignment should have. I know that folks just become an RBT somewhere sometimes, and then the company just happens to offer supervision. You're with Steve now, right? It's like, well, what? What about I don't want to work with Steve, and not because I have anything against Steve, but maybe he has different style than I like, or he works a different population than I'm interested in. I do think folks need to have more skin in the game when they are deciding who their supervisor is going to be. It's not always a great fit. It has only happened once, and I don't do supervision anymore, so maybe it would have happened more if I had done it for longer. But I did have to tell someone I can't be your supervisor anymore. Like, we tried a performance plan, and hey, let me help you, and I will give you every job aid and article and thing under the sun to help you complete this task. But if you're not going to do it in a reasonable timeline, then the clients are suffering, and I can't, allow that to continue. And so I did unfortunately have to, sever that supervisory relationship because it just wasn't working. And I'm not sure how much of that goes into the candidates mindset when they're like, okay, I'm going to sign up with this person for the next 2-ish years, probably is this the person I want to be reporting to and learning from? Because if not, then I encourage you to find another supervisor. Secondarily, we talked about, we're talking about professionalism skills, and I think we're talking more in that supervisor-supervisee relationship. I want people to I will beat on this a little bit, how coming in as a BCBA at a very young age and not having children of my own, I am very much a different behavior analyst now, having my own kids. And not to say you cannot be a phenomenal BCBA if you don't have children, and that's not what I'm trying to say. But I do think there needs to be some perspective taking when we are working with parents and they're coming into the clinic. I had a lot of eye-opening moments when I started doing in-home after graduate school. We were, I guess, it was school-based, but it was kind of like a center. We didn't have a lot of contact with the parents the way our practicum was set up. And then I started doing in-home and I was like, holy moly. Oh, mom slept 30 minutes like last night consecutively, maybe, right? And, now like all the things that are happening, there's laundry everywhere and mom looks like super fried. And then, hey, can you take data for me this week? Like, I'm surprised they didn't run me over with my car, to be honest, because I wouldn't have blamed them. Like, just ludicrous things that I think as a very young BCBA, like not really having that perspective taking in like those professionalism pieces to be like, wow, like you are super overextended. And like me asking you anything right now, it's going to just put you over the edge instead of like, how do I help you? How do I support you? And if it's not resources that I can provide, because I'm not like a social worker, like what are some resources I can guide you, to go do those kinds of things. But I'm not sure people really understand some of the situation that some of these kiddos are coming from and the life, like the home life, on how much that is impacting their time at the clinic and things like that. So I think along with the professionalism between the supervisor and the supervisee, we need to be teaching those skills of how do you meaningfully support, the entire family unit that you are serving.
You mentioned values too, Kristen, and that came to mind. While I was thinking about this question too, is that when I'm working under somebody who's supervising me, and I know at the very least our values are aligned. Like we value clinical outcomes, social validity. We value behavior change in a meaningful way. I can traverse corrective feedback with a lot more robustness than I can when I'm working for someone that I'm just trying to please, or I'm just trying to get a signature on my form. You know what I mean? As a supervisor, I've taken that with me. Like, hey, I tended to work better with people that, even though they might have been difficult supervisors, I at least know that they valued the same things that I valued, and they valued meaningful outcomes. It makes it a little easier. And I've tried to take that with me into my supervision practices as well. So I just thought that was interesting.
I feel like someone shouldn't be a supervisor if they're not trying to help someone become the best clinician that they can be. Like, this isn't like trying to go somewhere and get my what's it called? Community service hours signed off just so I don't, get in trouble here. This is like, I am here to help build your repertoire. And so let's do that. And you need to identify yourself. That's not you. Like, not everybody has to be a supervisor. I know a lot of jobs probably say you have to be a supervisor, but not everybody should have to be a supervisor.
Yeah.
But I think finding that supervisor that's going to match with your style is important. Like, I was waiting for Taylor to, tell everyone how mean I was, because I do hold people accountable. I won't shy away from that. But I did have one of the master students, like he actually asked to switch onto my supervision because he knew that I wouldn't let him get away with crap. Because he's like, I'm working with so-and-so and they're like, so they're so bright and they're so talented, but like, I know I'm going to walk all over them. So like, can you please take over and just like slap me around if I don't do what I'm supposed to do? I'm like, yep, here I am. And again, because I wanted to be extremely successful and become a great behavior analyst, and you don't do that if you don't get your poop in a group. And so I will own that. Like, and again, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And like, I'm also okay with that. But I do try to meet people where they're at in terms of like, what's a good feedback system for them. But some people have needed the, like, I'm gonna slap you silly, dummy, and not take an excuse for like, I was tired that day. Like, too bad, so sad. Coffee's your friend.
I was glad I got paired with Kristen as a first year undergrad, very first exposure, and she was my supervisor. So we matched up perfect.
Moving on to question 2. Kristen, you're first on this one. I'll get my handy buzzer ready here. I'm not saying that you're going to go over. I'm just saying just in case. Where should supervision address issues that fall outside of the task list, but still directly affect clinical outcomes?
You might buzz me on this one. So I think it's been a little bit more challenging now with some of the new, I guess, kind of like revisions to like from the BACB, like what the rules are for fieldwork supervision. I know when we were in graduate school, like if I wanted to assign like, hey, you don't have a client who's currently taking medication right now, like, but chances are as you take on clients, especially if they're older and comorbid conditions, there's a really huge impact that medication can have, right? Like and serve as an EO and things like that. I want you to read this article and then we're going to talk about it, right? And that's going to count towards your hours. We had the authority to be able to do that. And I used to assign a lot of things like that I was not this kid right now in this moment, but I know as you grow in your career, you should know these things. And I think it is challenging now because if it's not directly related to like an actual active client in your clinic, at least that you oversee, is my understanding that that's not something that can count. Now, not to say that you can't assign it and it can't count towards your hours, but I think if we're being honest with ourselves, folks aren't going to do things that don't count.
Oh, gotcha. Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is one because I also didn't like that change to the BACB, but I think one of the changes I did like was not being able to supervise a day out of getting your certificate. So having to wait however many years it was, because then I think that still allows those new BCBAs to continue to get ongoing mentorship, ongoing supervision. And because you're never going to be able to get all of the things, even on the task list, done in the number of hours of direct supervision. And so for me, I do incorporate those things as they're coming up, like in situ, like, hey, we've got a med review call, peer review this afternoon. All supervisees, you're joining us for that call so that way you can do that. But if they weren't there when that peer review was going to happen, they would have missed out on that. And then the subsequent follow-up soapboxing that I do to talk for an hour about things like mental health parity or the ADA laws and things like that, they would have missed that. And so that has to be incorporated ongoing throughout those first year or two of their experience of being BCBAs. Nice. I'm liking that you're on with the buzzer today, Kyle.
I'm on it today. Yeah. Steve, get ready.
I don't think anybody believed that you actually would use it before. So except for
got it in me,
like on me. So. Is it my turn? Is my clock starting now?
It is, and you're 10 seconds in already. I'll start it over. Go.
All right. Yeah, I'd probably take a different approach. Yes, we need to go through the task list and make sure you know all those things as we're going and doing supervision and get the opportunity to practice them. But I've had too many people come in without the basic fundamentals, knowing what they need to know. And so I go back to and test and see, all right, day one, all right, we're going back to the principles of behavior, POB, whatever version you can get your hands on. We're going to relearn things. And I also don't want anybody walking away without having read verbal behavior with me and gone over like stimulus equivalents and things like that, because regardless of whether you'll ever use that, I want you to have a full picture of what you're doing as a behavior analyst and a scientific behavior analyst, not just being able to pass that test and work in the field. And so I'm not probably everybody's cup of tea as a supervisor, but that's what I require if someone's going to get supervision from me.
I have a quick double horn follow-up to that. It is wild how many graduate programs that are graduating clinicians that are going to be focusing on VB map style learners, clients, whatever you want to call them, don't require the reading of verbal behavior. It is nuts how many supervisees I've had where I go, all right, let's go to the man chapter. Tell me how that applies to this. And they go, we didn't read the man chapter. What's the man chapter? Verbal behavior, that was assigned as one of your courses, right? And they go, no. It's like, then how do you understand the VB map? How do you understand the reason for half of the level 3 intraverbal behavior stuff? Like, you just say intraverbal behavior, we do fill in the blanks, wheels on the we teach bus, and we're good. So that's my devil horns for the day. I'm gonna have to borrow Kristen's devil horns at some point. She's gonna have to nail them, but
She's got them on though.
Yeah, it's nuts. So Steve, I agree with you 100%.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Also like child development, like when you're saying we're working with like the BB maps, like kiddos, we're working with the pediatric, kiddos and IRE treatment plans where, the discharge criteria is when the kid who's 3 is going to have 0 tantrums for 6 weeks. And I'm like, what? Have you met a 3-year-old? They're basically terrorists. So there's that. But I also have these on for Taylor because I understand the idea behind the BACB that you can supervise right away. Like you can if you have a consulting supervisor.
Yes.
And, the consulting supervisor should be really good. Says something like that. They should have like a track record of being a good supervisor, which I don't know how we operationally define that. And then you only have to check in once a month. And they're also not responsible for any of your behavior with those supervisees. They're just kind of like, are you doing cool stuff? Neat, bye. I don't think we really have changed anything really with that. And then I could just wait 12 months and learn absolutely nothing more about how to be a supervisor. And then when it's, 366 days, I can just go and supervise. So anyways, I'll probably get myself canceled today.
No, that's I had my rose-colored glasses on. I was thinking it was well-intended, right?
I do think there's well intentions behind it. I just don't think it's going to change behavior in the way that we actually want. And I still see lots of BCBAs who do not even want to do supervision, but there are companies telling them, hey, you do this now. Mm-hmm. And I had someone tell me that they told the supervisee, like, hey, we're just going to learn how to do this together. And I actually just talked about supervision at ABA Care. So this is pretty fresh in my brain. I had a slide and I said, engaging in fieldwork supervision shouldn't be like putting furniture together from IKEA, right? Like we're not going to just dump shit out and like look at the instructions and hope it comes together. Like that's not fair to the supervisor and that's not fair to the supervisee, that you're now matched with someone who the company said, go do this thing and like, do what? Like do what? Do what exactly? That's really not nice. I don't like that.
Yeah, even with the 1 year in and taking the 8-hour course, like when I was helping, I'm not going to name names, but we were developing a course somewhere where I was working before and going through the different 8-hour courses just to figure out, what's going on, who's using what. And some of those, like you could click right through and not even learn anything and just be done with it. And so that's why I think Kyle needs to get off his ass and work on our cooperative learning, supervising training here quicker so we can get some good stuff out there to people.
Well, there's lots of notes. There's lots of notes. Go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah.
Kristen, that was Kristen. That was you volunteering, right?
No, zero amount of that. I was just say I will say in the BACB's defense, there is a free self-assessment tool now that is available to go over all the changes to field work. So I do feel like that's like a nice resource. You can go in as a supervisor, make sure that you're keeping up with different changes and stuff like that as they are abundant. So I don't want to always just be talking shit about the BACB. I do think they have a pretty thankless job and we are pretty unmanageable people in general. And so I do think they're doing the best they can, given the current population they are trying to deal with. Yeah, especially the people on this call. So I'm not always trying to throw them under the bus. I think regulating our field is difficult, especially at the speed at which we have grown. And the fact that we have individual licensure, states, like there's just a lot. There's a lot going on all of the time, but that is a nice resource. So I will say something nice today about the BACB. How's that?
Nice. Yeah, I did not know that was out there. I'm going to check that out when we're done. Taylor, were you raising your hand or was I seeing things? You're muted.
Yeah, I think I was just rubbing my face.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Anything else on question 2? We nailed it. I like question 3 because this is one that I always have in my supervisor experiences and internal battle with. And Taylor, you're first on this one. So
get the buzzer ready. So I have go ahead. Well, you didn't even ask it. Go ahead.
I'll read it so that those who don't have the questions beforehand know what the question is. But then yes. What signs indicate a PIP, performance improvement plan, is warranted? And then the follow-up to that is what makes an effective performance improvement plan? Now you may go.
I have such a love-hate with performance improvement plans. And I think where I'm sitting in this exact moment is you're going to use a performance improvement plan to get rid of someone that you don't want working at your organization anymore. I think, like Steve's answer to his original question, like if there is that relationship of we're trying to help each other get better, and I see the likely improvements in your performance, or that you're making the efforts and you're willing to accept the feedback, and we have that relationship, I'm able to just give that to you formally or informally without this need for this organized, structured piece of paper that you have to sign and a witness has to sign and it goes to HR, because that's not doing what I'm intending for it to do, which is improve your performance. But if you have that lost soul or that person where it's just like, I'm not going to be able to change your behavior, and the amount of time, effort, and energy it's going to take for me to do it isn't worth the juice, isn't worth the squeeze, then we're doing performance plans.
Nice. Exactly, too. Nice work. Dr. Sparks.
Nothing's as bad as when the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Just how disappointing. I think they definitely have their place. Ideally, you never have to get to that point. But if you have to give feedback 3-4 times and they're just not picking it up, it's important to have things in writing. It's important to have them. I mean, maybe they're not taking good enough notes and not remembering what it is, the feedback you're giving. And it's very important to have it in writing, not only what is that's not meeting your standards, but exactly what needs to be done to be able to change that. Now, that being said, they do have that dual purpose of like, all right, if you're not going to be able to meet these, now I have evidence to show you this relationship isn't going to work, whether it's just supervision or employment. But you shouldn't be designing a plan to be failed. You should be designing one to be successful, and with added reinforcement, hopefully, as well as part of that. So,
Kristen, take us home.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the sentiments from Steve and Taylor that they have dual purpose, and it's always sad when it's just from the documentation piece. But I think if they're, I mean, depending on who the person is, and if they really want to be there, right? And sometimes they do, and they're just on the struggle bus. I do like hope that there's like some kind of revelation too, like about the organization of like, oh, like we need to change our onboarding, or I need to like allocate more resources to this kind of task. Like what I've asked of you just maybe isn't unreasonable. Like I hope that all folks who have designed those performance intervention plans have really done all those pieces to say like, have I really set you up to be your most successful in this environment? Or have I given you all of your cases, you know, your kids only are here in the clinic from 2 to 6 p.m. And I'm mad that you're not getting your billables. Like, well, you've set them up for the impossible. So what are we going to do to rectify that? Or you're just like, nope, you haven't met your billables, so you're out. I'm hoping that if people are doing that, they're using it as a learning tool for themselves as well, and not just for the person who they're working on with.
Yeah, I think back to early days, we didn't really even make supervision contracts. It was just kind of get in there and just supervise and teach people things. And how many difficult, rough, and like weird situations that would come up before we were just putting things in writing. And so that's kind of where I go back to how important it is to have all those details in that supervision contract, and then being able to use this documentation to also say, this is exactly what I've asked you to do. Like, why aren't you remembering to do those things? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I've been on one in my 15 years now, something like that. I've been on one PIP.
There's another one coming.
I will say, it was presented very, it was a circumstance, like this life circumstances combined with me misinterpreting some of the rules of the organization, and it really was presented in a supportive manner. However, for me personally, natural born people pleaser, it was like the most aversive thing, like every unwanted, like emotional side effect that I could get from that stimulus of being there, even though my supervisor presented it as like, this is a formality just because you technically did not do this. It kept me up at night. And so I'm wondering, even if, should they even be standardized? The idea that I wasn't meeting some expectation that I was regularly getting feedback for was really tough. And so I don't know. I guess that's more anecdotal, but
well, I think I've had
either.
no, I've had a lot of situations though where someone struggles for a bit, and then you get them on the right path, and then there's regression towards the mean. Like we fall back into the least amount of behavior that's necessary to get that reinforcement, and so sometimes having to revisit that and coming back to it is necessary when they're hitting every other mark, but there's just one thing that you keep forgetting, and it's paperwork that means we don't get billed on time or something along those lines, where it could be a pretty big deal because, I'm doing great, I'll just get to this later. And so it doesn't have to be such a bad thing either, if it just helps you with that one area that you continue to, from time to time struggle with.
So I'd be interested, Steve, and I know we've got a couple more questions, but from a doc analyzes anything perspective, what do you think is different between me just coming to you and saying, hey, you're not hitting this metric, we're doing it more informally, or it's like I could come to your office every morning, like on my way in, I'm going to grab my coffee and always remember to stop by Steve's office and go, hey, did you get your billing notes in? Okay, that was enough. Versus that written piece of paper where your manager signed it. It's got the what meets expectations, what doesn't meet expectations. Like, what do you think is the difference there? Because I think similar to what Kyle's saying, I'm not going to go into my one PIP that I got in my professional life, but like, it was horrible. It was horrible. And if they would have just come and said, hey, Taylor, blank needs to happen, I'd be like, all right, we got it. And for me personally, it ruined my relationship with that employer.
There's a couple different things that could be going on there. We won't take too long on it. But for one, there is...
This is what he says before he takes a long time on something.
Yeah, before I take forever on anything. For one, there's the checklist approach. I mean, like doctors were forgetting things, items in surgery. Pilots were forgetting all kinds of parts of their takeoff procedures. You have the checklist there. You have this thing written there, this reminder ahead of time to do it. And now we have much fewer of those issues. And so it could be that you could replace this with a checklist just so that person doesn't continue to forget, that issue. And then also we know that, and again, extremely boring, but I did my dissertation on staff training, and feedback alone for a lot of people is not effective without contingencies involved. And so by having that contingency involved, now there's an extra motivation there that this is a bigger deal. You never know if your delivery is hammering home how big of a deal this is or not when you're just giving that feedback verbally, but now there's contingencies attached, and if you're going to be successful, this is it kind of thing.
Yeah. We can move on, but this is just my hatred for the PIPs is, couldn't you apply all that without needing the PIP though, right? Couldn't you apply the contingencies to it in that more informal bidirectional feedback type of situation where I just come sit down in your office for a few minutes and go, hey, Steve, we got to do blank. Otherwise blank's going to happen. Or, you know what I mean?
Well, yes, but then you can have the, he said, she said, was that ever said? Did they remember?
Right.
Did they
catch
absolutely.
It? Yeah, no, I'm with you.
And then there's also, if you are going to be proactive enough to make a checklist for them, and then there's an issue, and great. But a lot of us are like on the fly. Oh, I heard about this. Let's go over it.
Oh, I feel that.
And so, just make the checklist ahead of time. You're good, but most people aren't. And so it kind of covers the same function. And at that point, is it almost not a PIP just without the signature at the end or the title at the top? You know what I mean?
Right.
PIP is also the worst name for how dire of consequences it implies. It's like, it's called a PIP.
I just think of South Park every time I hear it. So
I don't know what you're referencing.
There's a British character named Pip who they call Frenchie because they're very appropriate on that show.
Yeah, wow. Number 4, unless there's any other follow-up on that one. All righty. 4, Steve, it's back to you. It disappeared. Where'd it go? I'm going to say that over again. Number 4, Steve, it's back to you. How do we supervise clinical judgment when the decision the supervisee makes is different than what you, the supervisor, would make?
My favorite approach is to act like I'm a committee that's like reviewing their work. You know what I mean? Sit down explain it to me why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing what you're doing. I may agree with you 100%, but I want you to be able to tell me and teach me why. And so I get a sick, guilty pleasure out of sitting down with a new clinician and saying, they put a token economy in, and I'm like, all right, why'd you do that? Knowing that I would have done the same thing, but just wanting to see them explain why they're using a token economy, because nothing is worth to me than someone just throwing one in there when it's not necessary. So.
Use of the emojis for those not visually tuned in. We got some heart emojis. Kristen, go ahead.
Steve's so nice. I think I'm a mean supervisor. Goodness, I have new levels, new sights to set on. But I like Steve's approach, like in terms of it may not have been like my first choice, but if they can, clinically support like the implementation that they want to do, with the caveat that if there's some other variable that they haven't considered and there may be, harm or detriment to the client, then I'm be like, whoops, neat idea, but did you consider X, Y, and Z and have that become a learning opportunity? But if it's just both these interventions will probably get the same results in the same amount of time, then you want to have a really strong feeling about one, then go ahead and let them do it, as long, again, we have that clinical rationale to back it up.
Ian Taylor.
Yeah, I think I agree with both what Steve and Kristen said. And so to move away from just repeating what they said, in my supervision, there's a Taylorism that all my supervisees have taken away, in that I tell them right from the beginning is that there's no wrong in ABA outside of the obvious that Kristen already described, like harm to clients, things like that. But there's no wrong in ABA if you can clinically analyze and describe how whatever sort of behavior change mechanism you're going to use is going to have the impact that you're anticipating or the expected outcomes. And while I've softened quite a bit over my career from when I first started out with the Kristen and the Steve of, all right, tell me why. And just like, are you sure? And because I remember those were the experiences that we got in grad school. I remember Kristen, tell me why, Taylor, you're going to do that. And I'd be like, I think because of this. And she'd go, are you sure? Yeah, I'm absolutely sure, because I can say it's this, and this based on the principles of behavior, yada, yada. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to see from our supervisees, is even if they might not agree with us, if they can still analyze it and clinically judge it in a way that's going to achieve the outcomes that they're anticipating, that's where I'm saying there's no wrong in ABA, right? You could have a different outcome, and yours might actually work better than mine. So I can see the finger going to the buzzer, so I'll stop.
No, you're good. Kristen, go ahead. I liked what you were saying, so I kept it going.
Yeah, I was mean, so it's fine. I own it, and
but I think I responded the best to that because we matched.
That's right. True story. But also when I was doing supervision, I had, like, if we were gonna, like, hey, this particular kiddo that we're all working with, they're close to mastering these couple of goals, so we're gonna write new ones. I want you guys, as they got closer to, graduating, taking their test, like, you guys need to start writing some goals. And I had a literature review form for them, like a template, and they had to have the article, like, what's the title, what was the methodology, like, why did you pick this as a potential way to teach this skill? Like, were there any limitations that the author addressed? And, like, would you want to change than anything? Like, knowing what they said of, like, oh, it would have been better if we had done X, Y, or Z. Like, are you going to incorporate that, like, into the teaching? And because all the programs I wrote, like, had a citation, because that's what we were trying to do. And so I can sit here very easily and say, like, oh yeah, well, I'd ask them, what is the rationale for that? Knowing that they would have done the article review, like, ahead of time. I don't know how often, and I'm not trying to be obnoxious, like, I just don't know how often that is happening now. Like, in supervision, are folks being assigned to go do, like, you want to teach shoe tying, for example, right? Like, simple task analysis. But how are you going to teach it with this learner, knowing their background and other variables and fine motor skills, or whatever the case may be? Or, like, does this kid actually ever wear tie shoes? Because I don't know, my kids live in Crocs. So, and, like, where on the priority list does shoe tying fall for a kindergarten these days? I'm not sure. But that was just what we did. And that was certainly what was required of my supervisees, was they were going to go to the literature and then write their own program based on that. And I just don't know how.
Yeah, I tie my shoes once or twice a year, and that's it. I either get slip-on shoes or I tie them and then slip them on with them staying tied. And so
that sounds right.
Yeah,
I'm clipping that. I'm clipping that sentence only.
Yeah, and again, we're doing different, kind of stuff compared to what early intervention is. Although there's going to be a lot of overlap, but a lot of times there's not an article to go and review how to address this specific, like polydipsia. The person's drinking to the point of toxicity. What do you do here? And because I've done it before several times with several different consumers, sure, you can see, okay, here's the behavior, here's the maintaining contingency, here is the other skill we want to teach, that sort of thing. Maybe not, polydipsia may not be the best example for that, but say physical aggression or something like that. Mm-hmm. But just using something like a DRA isn't always the best approach. First of all, we don't necessarily want to extinguish because of extinction burst, that sort of thing. And also something I've found in many years of experience that I've never heard or not heard very many people talk about is you need to address all potential reinforcing outcomes, because just because it's attention maintained doesn't mean a tangible won't maintain it moving forward. Or and a lot of times by the time they come to us, it's all multiply maintained because attention's always incorporated with the original reinforcer. And so, all right, DRA, that's great. That's what by the book. But I want you to explain to me why you're using it, so then I can add 5 or 10 things to think about that might make your plan even that much better on top of it. And taking that approach, it's rarely a you're wrong. It's hey, check this out. This is cool. This might work even better for you type of thing.
Yeah, Taylor.
I think that almost one of the last sentences Steve said, being able to explain the why behind it is the most important, because my follow-up was actually to Kristen's statement on, are we doing bullet reviews anymore? And I think I've seen an extreme of both ends to that. I think right when I graduated, I saw an extreme where probably more often than not, at least in what I experienced, was people having to constantly find specific literature to meet their specific case. And if they couldn't, they'd throw their hands up, where it'd be like, oh no, I'm trying to address self-injury in a 17-year-old directed at his knee. And the closest I can find is an 11-year-old with self-injury on his thigh. And so I don't have an option. I ran out of the literature. There's nothing there. So I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And I think that goes back to what I used to be frustrated on. That is like, well, what did you figure out the function? Did you figure out the reinforcer? Did you figure out like the principles of behavior? The principles of behavior. So if you can figure out the why and apply it, it applies universally. It doesn't matter if it's his toe or his knee or his elbow. And so that's where I think I used to get a little bit frustrated with that. But I think predominantly now, to Kristen's point, I don't see that. I'm seeing a complete lack of understanding. I remember my very first year as a behavior analyst practicum student, first semester, all of the grad students being able to quote, oh yeah, no, the 82 Awada and that 91 Gina Green paper about, like, they were just rattling that stuff off. And then when I got to that point, I was rattling crap off. I'm like, oh, I made it. Like I'm here. I made it to that point. I'll reference like pivotal papers in our field to my current supervisees, and they're like, huh? What paper? I've never even heard of that author. So I think we're in a bad spot with current kind of supervision practicum university standards and expectations. So
yeah, and I agree with that too. You have to just be able to take what you've learned and apply it to a new area and not have to find that written. I mean, imagine someone going in one of my first cases. I walked in and I went to a doctor's appointment with the caregivers and everything to see what was going on with this problematic behavior. And she tried to rip the sharps container off the wall to swallow the needles. I'm like, all right, let's look through Java. Where does it say swallow? No, like, it's not there. You know what I mean? But it was very clearly attention maintained behavior. There is a lot of literature about addressing attention maintained problematic behavior. And so you can figure out how to design something based on that. And that is much more of a skill set, I think.
And I'm thinking now what's the latest, like 51% exam pass rate at the moment? Is that what we're at the moment? And, just putting it into context, that's low, that's very low. However, if that is what it takes for our programs to kind of ramp it up a little bit and start meeting what?
I think that's a different discussion too, because I'll help a supervisee go through some test prep and I'll ask a question. I'm like, I have no idea. And then I realize, oh, someone coined a new term and now I can't answer this question just because someone wanted to sound smart and come up with a new term. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to ask this question in a way that it's hard for anybody to interpret what you're trying to say here. And so I think it's 50-50. There are some program situations that they're leaving it up to the learner to learn rather than, nope, if you're gonna pass, you get through this, you're gonna learn. But then also, like, we have a tendency in this field to reinvent things, call it something else, just to sound smart as well.
Well, even supervising experiences, or to Taylor's point, not reading verbal behavior. It's like at some point those things need to be, selectionism. But like those practices should probably be reintroduced if we want our exam pass rate to go up. And I don't know, I'm on a tangent. Go ahead, Kristen.
Well, and Taylor said earlier, the new requirement from the BACB that you can't supervise like the second you pass your exam. Like, it's funny because like we did as doc students, right? Like, absolutely. Yeah. The second I passed my exam, not the second, because like we had to wait in the mail for our results, right? Yeah. So like, yeah, it was a hot minute. So, we didn't supervise those few, like from taking my test to hearing the results, I didn't supervise then. But I'll tell you, it was so much easier to supervise at Western because I knew all of their prerequisite knowledge because I had already taken the classes. And so I knew at what kind of point in their supervision I could start talking about certain things because like, oh, have you taken that class yet? Okay, excellent. Like, oh, you're with so-and-so this semester? Neato. Like, I already knew like their baseline and like what they were coming with. And then when I left Western and I started supervising here in Arizona and I had some students that were in an online program and I'm going over things with them and they're just looking at me, just doe-eyed, like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I talking about? Like, yeah. What are you talking about right now? And I remember they did one of their first assignments and it was like mock FBA. They had fake client data. They had to do an FBA come up with behavior plan. And I said, how did the assignment go? And they're like, oh, we all got 99s. I'm like, oh, like, what did you lose points for? And they're like, APA formatting. I'm like, hand it over. And I like read them. I'm like, no, like, you do not know. Like, all of this is wrong. And so the new rule was they're not allowed to hand it in their assignments before I went over it with them. And so I did a lot of backfilling, volunteerism, unpaid time with those ladies.
Yeah.
And I, zero regrets. I think they're all talented behavior analysts now, but it was a very different supervision experience trying to figure out where were their coursework like not meeting their needs to be successful and like how much I then as a supervisor had to be like, have you read this? Nope. How about this? Nope. Crap. Here. Like now you're going to do, all of this. And at the time, again, like at least that extra reading counted towards their hours so outside of coursework. But it wasn't necessarily related to the client. But I think it'd be even more challenging now to do that because it wouldn't count to hours. And then you need to convince people that this is your career and you need to invest in it now and not just race towards the 2,000 hours and call it good and call it done. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I stole a competency exam that we designed as PhD students for the master's students when I was in Jessica at the time Frieder's lab, now Van Stratton, and we were probably a little harsh because we were PhD students and testing the master's students, but it very much is like, all right, show me how much you know. This tells me where we have to start at, and that's where we're starting, regardless of what your school says you have going on.
All right, last question, you guys. Kristen, you're first. What behaviors indicate that a supervisee has become an excellent clinician?
Excellent's a big word. But I'm hoping that folks start thinking about, have you really, like as a supervisor, have you really prepared them to be like independent practitioners? I think sometimes like, oh, I don't like doing this task, so I'm going to have you do it. And you can count it as your hours. You're going to do my grunt work and stuff that I don't like doing, as opposed to like real case conceptualization and being able to like, once you pass your exam, take on a caseload. Like, are you able to come to me for like hey, can you just take a look at this and like do a couple little red marks versus like, here's my problem, like, please solve it for me. Like, I'm hoping that we are at the place where we are just doing like a review of the final product as like a little checkoff piece, like they're ready to be independent.
I like it. Taylor.
I think it's essentially the culmination of everything we've been talking about in the previous 4 questions of you can understand the why, you can analyze the thing in the moment and come up with a solution. You're in a spot where you're still open to feedback and that bidirectional feedback is there, knowing that you are ready or that you're never going to be not a learner, and needing to know that you're always going to need to be open and willing to accept feedback and learn new things. And all those kind of non-taskless items, right? Can you describe things and work with insurance funders and understand mental health parity and how to advocate for families and take a family's perspective and know about child development. And I think all of those things make a well-rounded. So maybe I'll change the word excellent to well-rounded.
Steve, take us home.
Yeah, I agree. Excellent. I don't know if I had ever considered even myself or anybody else I run into excellent. I'd say competence is where that line should be. And walking through these processes we've been talking about, at what point do I stop having feedback to give you? You've got the answers when I'm asking them. You're ready to go. You're out there getting the stuff done. There's no complaints. I'm supervising you in the field and in a meeting, and everything's looking good. You need to be willing and able and ready to continue learning, because it should be a never-ending learning process. But if I see competency there and I don't have anything that I can think of to give you feedback on, that's when I'm thinking, all right, I'll still check in every once in a while, but you're ready to kind of be out there on your own as much as you can be.
Kristen has some follow-up.
I think once they, well, because Taylor said it and Steve said it too, like, I think once they understand like the Dunning, like Krieger effect, like of our field, like really knowing that like, crap, there's still like so much I don't know, and owning that and being open to it. I am certified 19 years this month. Woo-hoo, for me, I'm old. And there are still plenty of things that I would not do as a behavior analyst. If someone called me tomorrow and said, hey, we've got this 35-year-old man in a group home that is punching all of his staff, you're a BCBA, come help me. I'd be like, oh no, hey Steve, right? Like that, I have no business. I have no business showing up there and saying like, yep, I got this covered. Because I just haven't done that. I do not have the relevant experience to be working with that population successfully. And so if for people to own that, like, there is still so much that you don't know. And like, we're a science and we keep learning. And so even if you went through a fantastic program, which I think Western was, there are still plenty of things happening in our field that if we're not keeping up with it, then we are, we need to, like, it is a continuous learning science that and I think if people aren't willing, like, oh, well, I passed my exam. Neat for you. Neat for you. Like, now what? Like, what are you going to do to help continue to grow and better yourself and better serve your clients? That should be that. Like, congratulations. Like, I'm happy for you, right? I was very excited when I got my piece of paper in the mailbox. Like, people should be excited that they then indeed passed their exam. But you know what I did when I passed my exam? I stayed on and did more hours as a doc student, practicum, like paid for, right? Like paid to take more hours because I'm a glutton for punishment. Because I just wasn't done. Like, and I'm still not done. Like, I'm every once in a while, I'm like, I wonder if I could just like live in someone's clubhouse for like a hot minute and like come and do some internship over there. And then I remember I have like a real job and a family, and probably living in a clubhouse isn't going to work out so well. But there are still plenty of things that I would like to go and do and learn in our field still. And I get nervous when newer graduates or even BCBAs who aren't newer graduates don't have that mentality that they don't know everything there is to know.
Yeah, I wasn't excited. I was just relieved because I had a assistantship set up that I was already starting, and then if I didn't pass, I was screwed. So at that point, I'm just like sweating in my boots. Not enough to do any real studying, but enough to be sweating in my boots. So, but no, just talking about knowing where your level of competency is, and it's hard to do, but I'm sure I could do a VB map, but I haven't done it in 14 years. So would I even want to try to attempt it? No, I'd probably say, hey, talk to somebody who does this on a daily basis, because I'm sure I can do just fine, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one of my wrap ups from a follow-up to the original question was, when you become a well-rounded clinician, maybe the analysis of that would be, you no longer need the supervision like Steve was talking about, but you still need, I think the BACB used to, or this used to be written at some point, like you still need to maintain collegiate or colloquial relationships with peers to be able to bounce ideas off of, and to have colleagues that you can say, hey, this is still kind of within my scope, but I'm struggling. Let me call or let me email Kristen or the handful of people that I have that I still reach out to. That it may be 2 years that I don't talk to them, but I'll tag them up and go, hey, you have a little bit more expertise than me on this. Let me reach out to you, versus the times where, I think it's been a couple years now, but like, call up Steve and go, hey, I got someone who's outside of my scope. I'm sending them your way, Steve. You figure out if you can work with them or not. And I think being able to have that's like the finish line, but you never cross that finish line. So.
And unfortunately, the way things are set up today, I just don't think most are able to build those relationships like we did.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing that, at least in the circles that I'm a part of. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing clinicians I interact with go, oh yeah, let me call Susie.
Yeah,
because I know I can have her help. So I don't know what will fix that or what we need to do to get back to that. But I know at least the four of us in this room, we have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kristen.
Yeah, I've definitely, I call it second brain time, right? If I need to, like, hey, I'm looking at this, I think this is right, but like, I need a second brain. Can you take a look at this? And that was a big push for me building that school community. So people can be connecting. I mean, we don't do a clinical roundtable. We can't be like, bring your kid, your client stuff. No, we don't do that. But we've connected people like with each other. We talk about, things that are happening in your field, but then they are obviously then able to make their own relationships if they want to talk offline and be like, hey, I know that you have a really, strong background in like RFT and stuff like that. Could I consult with you or things like that? And people have done that, which I'm really, really, really excited and grateful that has happened a bit in our community to be able to do that. It happened for me, for myself, actually. I met Mark Malady, and then he introduced me to Stu, and I was, consulting on a case. I'm like, oh boy, this a little extra. And so I called up Stu, and lucky for me, he's like, I love behavior analysis. Of course, I'll help you. And so, there's no shame in your game for saying like, I am not 100% sure, but let me go and find someone who is more and better equipped to go do this. And I think that's the behavior we need to be modeling for younger people. Like, it's okay not to know everything. Like, the problem is when you don't know everything and then you just make up, you fake it till you make it. Like, I don't know how many times I see that as advice on social media. Like, oh, it's fine, we're all struggling, just fake it till you make it. No, dude, no. Tell someone, I need help, please. And then get said help. You don't fake it till you make it when you're dealing with vulnerable populations that are relying on you to improve their lives. But we don't do that.
Yeah, that's a skill set in its own. Like, imposter syndrome, but you really know your stuff. Fake it till you make it. Everything else, please know that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And that's why I always come back with, I have a shirt with Socrates on it now, just because I love that the only true knowledge is you know nothing. You know what I mean? Like, anything that we learn at some point could be disproven. There's going to be better explanations on the future, better interventions. So don't just walk around thinking you know what's going on. Even if it is your area of expertise, continue to learn.
University of Dunning-Kruger right there. Wise words to end on, y'all. Steve, Taylor, Kristen, thanks so much for joining Behavior Business Roundtable again. It's great hearing from you and seeing you. Check us out at cooperativelearning.com. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks everybody for tuning in.